everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalica and you're gonna be a spicier person after watching this video. You want to control my work? I'll do it extra properly for you. I heard this story from my husband, who's a bus driver at our city, and I think it's hilarious, so I want to share it with you. I was not present at the event, so I can just paraphrase everything and I cannot guarantee that everything happened exactly as I tell you. Also, English is not my first language, so I apologise if I make any mistakes. So, the bus department is divided in two here, and each of the departments has their own boss, HR, etc. When the department my husband works at got a new boss some time ago, the drivers, especially the older ones, doing their job for decades, were unhappy with him for several reasons. One thing he would do is sneak into the buses in the morning to control if people would check their buses correctly before leaving the premises, which you were obligated to do by company rule. The buses we speak of can be up to 23 metres long, and the first go out about 4 AM, so it's still dark and you can hide inside them if you want to. One day, one of the older drivers goes to his designated bus and sees the boss sitting in the back. The driver has been doing this for decades and wants to teach him a lesson, so he starts checking the bus and ignores him. He then proceeds to check everything, sees if the doors function properly, etc. And of course he has to test the brakes as well. Normally, you just let the bus roll and brake, but he did not do that this time. He went as fast as is allowed on the premises and then stomps on the brake. If you brake like that, the bus stands after like 10 metres, so everyone and everything flies to the front. So did the boss. The boss picked himself up and went to the driver, who acted surprised and said he didn't notice the boss was in the bus and apologised for hurting him. After this incident, the boss never did this again, and the drivers were very happy about that. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to keep a straight face while your boss goes flying up the aisle. I'll get my commission one way or another. This happened back in the 90s, when long distance calls were expensive. I got back home after being away for about 8 months of training for the Army National Guard. I was the only National Guard guy in my training class. Most of the other guys were regular army and ended up in South Korea. We promised to keep in touch. I went back to work for the same sales company that I worked for before I left. I was doing telemarketing for them before I left, but there was a new manager there and he had me ride along with the salesman I'll call M in the field. I was told I was going to get a percentage of his commissions. I could still do telemarketing in the office when I wasn't out with him if I wanted to earn some extra cash. Well, I didn't get any cut of the commissions. All I got were excuses. M would tell me to talk to the manager would tell me to talk to the office manager, and the office manager told me to talk to M, the salesman. I was owed close to $300, and they weren't paying me. 3 months later, I was making money telemarketing and doing sales on my own, but it really pissed me off that I wasn't getting something I was promised. So, after a few months, when I found a better job, I decided to get back in touch with my buddies in Korea. I'd still do telemarketing at the first place to make extra cash, and they were happy for the leads. I started going into the office when it was empty and calling Army Tech Control in Korea where I knew they'd be working and asking who was on duty. Invariably, someone I knew would be there and we'd shoot the breeze for a while. I ran up almost exactly a $300 phone bill with these conversations. Then I stopped showing up for the telemarketing. I got a pissed off phone call from the manager a couple of weeks later. "Did you run up a $300 phone bill calling Korea?" I said yes. He said, "You have to pay for that." I said, "Take it out of my commission from when I was riding with the salesman." I never heard from them again. Very nicely done. And he got to keep in touch with his buddies for a while. Greedy a-hole can't play video games anymore. Before this story begins, I'm on mobile, so I'm sorry for weird formatting. The TLDR is at the bottom. So, the story begins sometime in 2017, when I was in year 6 or 7. I was moving schools, from public school to an elite private school, so obviously I was pretty shy and such. On the third day, I ended up making a really good friend. We really hit it off and played Xbox all the time with each other. 2 months later, I really trust him, so I decided to give him my Xbox details to game share with him so he can play much more games. We played Rainbow Six Siege, Ark, Ghost Recon Wildlands, etc. 4 months after game sharing with him, he starts to drift away slowly from me. We still play together a lot, but he is making new friends, which is okay with me, I'm fine with that. 2018, my whole friend group starts playing Fortnite, and we have a ton of fun playing. This is when he starts being a real jerk to me, swearing, trash talking, crap talking, being toxic, and overall just being a really crappy guy. He even begins to be racist towards the other players in the lobby, and we start to see what a crappy person he really is. He leaves our friend group for a different one. April of 2018. He gets back into Rainbow Six Siege and is really a good player, manages to get the Platinum 1, and his dream is to get the Diamond. I hatch my revenge plan. He works very hard to get about 1 game off Diamond, then I hatch my plan. I log onto my laptop and begin to change all my passwords and stop game sharing with him. Keep in mind, he's addicted to Rainbow Six. He gets extremely mad and pissed at me and tells me to begin game sharing again with him. I always just laughed and then left the party. He gets all of his friends to report me on Xbox Live, and I get a 3-day suspension from chat, but I don't really care. 2 days later, his gold membership drops out, because I shared that with him too. Part 2. I get tons, and I mean tons, everyone who has a Microsoft account or Xbox to report him. Half reported him for toxicity in voice chat, the other half reported him for cheating in game. His account gets banned for something like 12 months, and his reputation is terrible. He's already been banned for toxicity and misuse of the report button. Screw with my overtime? Lose a tech. Years ago, I worked at a materials and logistics company. The pay wasn't great, but I had all the overtime I wanted, so I was content with my pay. One day, the old plant manager left, and the number 2 guy at the plant was promoted. Number 2 guy was kind of a douche, and one of his first changes was, and I quote, "All of this overtime is eating into my quarterly bonus. From now on, no overtime is allowed unless I personally approve it." With a single memo, I lost a full 8 hours of weekly overtime for equipment maintenance. Of course, this was going to cause machines to fail more often, but more importantly, that was 8 hours of time and a half that was pulled out of my paycheck to improve his bonus, and he was openly gloating about his cost savings. He also implemented the second the shift ends everything stops, just walk away from any uncompleted tasks policy, which meant that I had lost an additional 10 hours per week and meant that equipment was never put away, so the next shift would spend the first 20 minutes of their shift looking for things, but he didn't care because personal bonus. So I put in my 2 weeks and prepared to move on. Funny thing was that a couple of days later, I was approached by a boss other than the plant manager who asked if I would be willing to stay if they gave me the overtime back, but I had already found a better job with better pay, even without overtime, so I said no. Flash forward about 3 years, and I was hiring for a tech at my new company. A resume crosses my desk from a guy who had been hired at my old company about 6 weeks after I had left. My replacement at the old company was unknowingly applying to work for me. In the middle of a skilled worker shortage with, as 150 crap resumes in my inbox demonstrated, not a high availability of good candidates. Straight to the top of the pile you go. I don't know how long it took the old plant to hire somebody else. Their pay wasn't great. I was offering something like 35% more, and the labour force wasn't exactly flooded with quality people. They will never know that I poached away one of their guys, but it was a pretty sweet feeling. I think for this revenge to be fully complete, the original poster has to let the new guy know that he also worked for that company, and it would be a good way to find out what happened after he left. Watch me type my password? Let me personalise it for you. This happened 9 or so years ago. I was 18 or 19 in my first full-time job working at a doctor's clinic. One of my co-workers was mid-40s who was horrible to me and anyone that wasn't a fat and middle-aged woman. Let's call her Leanne. Not a fake name, that's a real name. I don't care. Anyway, this serial bully was the reason for high turnover in the admin team. She was a nasty piece of work, had gotten 5 people prior to me to quit. She had taken to standing next to me when I signed into the computer. I looked up while I was typing in my password and realised that this hag was watching what I typed for a password. Now for my extreme pettiness, I changed my password to F you Leanne, and the next day I made sure to type nice and slow for her to be able to read it. Later in the day, she was talking about passwords and how she uses different street names when she has to change it and asked what I use. Odd thing to ask, huh? Later that day, I changed my password again. The next morning, she's standing there again. I typed in 1000% F you Leanne. Edit. For those who want to hear more, she would get super nasty if someone used her mug. This mug had a certain place in the cupboard where she decided it lived. So every now and then I would move her mug to somewhere else in the cupboard so she thought someone had been using it. She literally went around asking if anyone saw someone drinking from her mug. If that behaviour persisted, then this petty revenge would probably turn into something more serious, like her precious mug ending up accidentally smashed to pieces. Okay, so that's all for r/PettyRevenge. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!